heard about that.
The Phoenix Lights?
Yeah, sounds kind of familiar.
The Phoenix Lights?
Yeah, they were like these green fucking weird-ass, like green glowing triangles, like over Phoenix and shit. And they started like talking about it on the fucking news. They're like, yeah, this, that, what the fuck is this? You know, everyone's like, whoa, we went outside and we're looking at this shit going like, wow, what the fuck is that? You know? The weird thing is that particular, the Phoenix sighting that they were talking about on the news and whatnot, it was seen from like various different states, you know, from different locations.
Several states saw it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like maybe an hour or two later, just talking about that it was like, what do they call them?
Weather balloons.
Weather. They were doing weather test balloons or some bullshit like that.
Which was the same excuse they gave.
It's a true deal. There was like thousands of people saw that shit, man. It wasn't like few, you know. It was the whole fucking city looking at this, going like, "What the fuck is this?"
Like nothing to see here.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of sightings, you know, and it's amazing how it always gets downplayed quite a bit.
Well,
yeah.
It always becomes a weather balloon.
Yeah.
Really? Do a lot of weather balloon shit for 20 for the 2000s.
Yeah, we all.
Yeah, it always does. Yeah.
We saw something one time when we were in Tacoma, and like we were walking around at night. And there were like, I think there were three of us. I think it was me, Chris, and Jeremy, and maybe Tate. I can't remember. But and we'd all had a little mushroomy tea, right? And usually I don't stare at the sky at night, but I was kind of tripping out a little. So I was like, oh, look at the stars. And then this craft or something like flew across the sky, kind of like a shooting star would, but then it slowed down and it stopped, and then it took off again, like super fast. It was like way high up, you know, you could tell it was super far up. And I mean, it must have been traveling, you know, tens of thousands of miles an hour, you know. It was just bizarre. And we all saw it too, you know, all three of us.
Yeah.
I saw it shoot across and slow down and stop, and I go, hey, look at that. And then they looked up and they saw it like take off again, so we all saw it, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was like the one I was telling you about at the job site where it wasn't just like somebody's like, oh, you wouldn't believe what I just saw. No, there was a bunch of us looking at this shit going like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just made
Yeah, me and Derek talked about it. I'm like, dude, did you see what I fucking just... He's like, yeah, that was the craziest shit I've ever seen. He's like, I've never seen anything like that. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was definitely some kind of spacecraft, you know. It wasn't a shooting star.
Yeah, I don't know.
The shooting stars don't stop, you know.
No, they don't, and they don't take off in opposite directions after they fucking had a little fucking, like, lunch conversation or whatever before they fucking, like, pick some poor soul to fucking land on their butthole, fucking touch down and probe the poor soul.
Right. Wake up in the middle of the night.
Let's get ourselves a toothless hillbilly and fucking probe them.
You know, that's the interesting thing that you mentioned that. Okay. So, if aliens came down and they checked us out as human beings, they noticed, like I said, like a huge portion of people like worship cows, so they think cows were gods, and so they might think that we favored stupidity or like low intelligence, that we held it in high esteem. Now, would that be perhaps why they seem to always abduct and or probe the toothless hillbillies?
Well, yeah, because you see, they don't see the part maybe where when we eat them, but what they do see is, oh, look at this fucking, look at this stupid thing feeding the cow, you know?
Yeah.
And praying to it. So obviously they're like, well, why should we go speak to this fucking toothless wonder, or we'll just go to the source, and that's why they fucking go talk to the cows, right?
Yeah, right before they turn them inside out and shit.
What's that?
Right before they turn them inside out.
Yeah.
Yeah. through their asshole.
Yeah. They're looking for their home.
Well, see, and again, you bring up a great point. Perhaps it could be. Now, go with me on this for a second. Like, open your mind a little bit here.
They're lost.
Yeah, just open your mind, everybody, in listener land. They seem to have a kind of a fixation or a real fetish or something going on with the butthole, because it's always like.
Well, it looks like they're galaxies. So that's what I was saying earlier.
Apparently,
I wonder if we have the same amount of fucking, like creases.
Creases.
So if we do,
that star cluster reminds them of home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got the appropriate number of arms to the galaxy with each little star cluster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then occasionally you see some asteroids, I'm sure, and that's fucking gross. Like they're like bleep bleep bloop bleep. Why don't you trim your butt hair? It is disgusting. You have a bunch of asteroids hanging out in your star cluster.
Yeah.
Yeah, but perhaps they identify something. Yeah, they
flying out a lot too.
They fucking recognize something in certain buttholes, and they're just like, that is the key to get back home. But perhaps they notice that sometimes.
Yeah, it's actually there's a corresponding hair follicle to like different constellations.
Yeah, and some
when you flip it.
Some are
inside out. It shows you the zodiac, and they just like ET, trying to find
when they
trying to send a signal.
They stretch it out real good, stretch all the wrinkles out so they can read the whole thing. Like me boom blah. This is our home. This is the way home. And they're like. Maybe there's a fucking space kit time continuum fucking wormhole in here and shit. So they're trying to get up in there and just fucking toothless hillbilly's like, man.
After they stretch out his fucking ass inside out.
Yeah.
They take their finger and it turns red.
A distended
prolapse. They touch the hillbilly's pee-pee and they say, "Be good."
Oh, they light it. You mean it lights up and their fingertips light up and glow?
What's that famous flick? When him and his buddies they went hunting or something. And,
Fire in the Sky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fire in the Sky, right?
Like,
oh, he comes back and he's like, I mean, obviously he was fucking raped, I mean, many times by the fucking ET, they raped his ass several times.
By his friends.
Oh,
and it just like drove him over the edge.
Well, yeah, they show that part where he's on the floor and the fucking honey like drips in his mouth and he like freaks out and shit and has a flashback. You remember what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
He has like a seizure and he's laying on the floor and then
flashbacks on how they were fucking like putting that thing in his mouth and probing his ass at the same time.
Spit roasting him. But yeah, when he towards the end,
his story to his friends because nobody would believe him, you know.
Well, towards the end, they finally do his whole flashback through the whole thing, and you see how they encase him in that shrink wrapping membrane thing. Also, he can't move. He's like, and they're like cutting the little one. They cut one eye. They cut open one little hole for one eye in his mouth. They jam that thing in there. They stick that needle down in his eyeball.
Oh yeah.
He's just like. That's when he was getting drilled in his ass.
Oh, they violated his ass. They didn't even drill it. They violated it.
In reality, though, that's when his friends were gang raping him, and his mind was snapping. His mind was snapping.
His memory blocked it to protect him.
Yeah. Instead of a needle that was like a wad going in his eye.
Oh, with some sand in it.
It was Cletus's little pencil dick fucking poking him in the eye.
But his mind snapped in such a way that he preferred the alternate reality for himself of being abducted by aliens and assaulted in every hole and everything's going on. When in the reality of it, they were all very wasted on white light and moonshine, and he was getting the worst end of the whole deal.
Yep. And that honey was just the sweetener they used. They made some sweet cinnamon honey moonshine that triggered the fucking memories.
Hey, the court records prove out. That was fire in the sky, baby. No, I don't know. That's not the truth. But the truth is something more like this. The truth is, they see aliens when they come down and they assault people and they do all this stuff and they freeze them.
So what you're saying is let's get this straight. So what you're saying is this guy probably had a fucking nervous breakdown, and to rewire everything so it makes sense to him, the needle in the eye was probably, like you said, salty cum shot in his eye.
Yeah, that's rough. Yes.
And then the
That's rough, but yes. Go on.
Well, and then
and the rest of it,
friends,
and
right?
the rest of it was the
they
rest
were
of
taking turns on him.
Spit roasting him, yeah.
Yeah.
The bright lights,
Eiffel Towers.
Remember he sees the bright lights, that blind him when the ship's coming down.
Yeah, so that was a flashlight.
Or those were like the KC lights on the top of their hillbilly fucking truck, shining in his ass.
The 4x4.
So they blinded his ass.
They used a spotting light like you shine in the deer's eyes at night when you shoot them, when you poach them at night illegally.
Spotter light.
Yeah, so he was blinded by that shit.
Goes blind and shit. He's like confused and next thing you know, he gets grabbed and maybe they just beat him a little, so he's kind of out of it. And the next thing you know, they're just taking turns on him.
Yeah, because they pulled his shirt down just so that it trapped his arms inside. So he couldn't move and shit, and they were on him.
So he can't move them. Yeah.
The next thing you know, he's got a steel.
So that would give him the feel of being like a
trapped in the membrine.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a cocooned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then when he woke up from the whole thing, he's like, well, before I go